Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we beseech your divine guidance in this meeting. Keep us ever mindful of our obligation. Grant us, dear Lord, wisdom, tolerance, and courage, that we may well serve our county and fulfill our trust. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. We have some minutes.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of February 17th and February 18th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, next up, do we have any public comment regarding pending resolutions for today? Okay, moving on, we have resolutions. First up, we have County Engineer. We have Dan Becker here today.
Morning.
Good morning.
I've got one resolution for your consideration, and that's the accepting and awarding of the 2026 Marks and Granger Road resurfacing project, and then our weekly permits.
Yeah, move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Yes.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next up, we have Jeremy Cinco, Sanitary Engineer.
Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Two resolutions for consideration. The first is amending a construction inspection service agreement with GPD Group for the Garmin Road Well Site Development Project. The second is authorizing and directing the sanitary engineer to execute an agreement with Wade Trim Incorporated to provide construction supervision and inspection services for 2026.
Move to approve both resolutions.
Second.
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. Next up, we have Denise Testa, Planning Services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have just one resolution authorizing the submission of an application for the Ohio Department of Agriculture Land Use Planning Grant Program and related authorizations.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out we did have a very large meeting on Thursday. It was like over
26 people.
26 people representing the various townships and municipalities and so
Excellent.
forth. It was a very good turnout, and as well as the Farm Bureau and Soil and Water and the Park District have an interest in supporting the grant application.
Great.
And for your information, we've received 9 letters of support, and so I'm very
Given
pleased.
it was over a weekend, that's pretty quick.
That's
Yeah.
pretty quick. That's very.
Okay, roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Brandon Gibson from Economic Development.
Good morning, Commissioners. Just one resolution today. It's a resolution approving a 10-year, 75% tax increment financing deal on what is known as the Bohattie site. It's right around 99 acres in Medina Township. This agreement, which is to be no more than $3,800,066, will create 185 homes and approximately 70,000 square feet of retail space on Pearl Road. This is a former Superfund site and then a brownfield site. This deal, which includes Pride One, local developer, has been in the works for many years. This has been a priority parcel and a priority project of the counties for a very long time, much before my time here in the county. We're excited to see the work get done and a deal that still protects some amount of tax value for local communities and schools and drives a public-private partnership that will completely transform that parcel.
All right. Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, I just want to say, having been obviously a lifelong resident of Medina County, I'm seeing the Bohattie property probably at its worst, and also its reputation as one of those distinctive Superfund sites whenever they were first created as a category, and with all the illegal waste and so forth. And this then also to mindful that this TIF pays for the public infrastructure improvements.
Correct.
And helps redevelop that site so that in that period of time, it will get back on the tax rolls and will be benefiting the community, the surrounding property values as well. So I definitely want to, like I said, indicate my support for this. I'm just glad they're able to get this public-private partnership put together and be able to transition from a Superfund hazardous waste site to something that's productive on the tax rolls.
And I truly believe the TIFs in general should always be looked at on a case-by-case basis. And when you analyze this property and the benefit it will bring to the community and the benefit of additional tax dollars coming back to the community, it really absolutely is a great deal.
I think there's two other points too, just to make on this, that the TIF is only on the commercial portion. So there's,
Correct.
you mentioned,
Correct.
the
Right.
resolution mentions the residential development that's part of this. That isn't receiving the financing.
Correct.
The tax, essentially the tax benefit there. And also, I think is evidence, and maybe it's a product of having local leadership in this, but evidence their commitment to the community. They are making a voluntary contribution,
To the school system.
consistent with how we handle the CRAs.
Correct.
Which
And
is not required.
it
in
is-
this. That's completely voluntary. And,
Correct. It is not required, but the developer made a substantial investment in Medina schools.
And
Which
speaking of
which I think is a factor that plays into probably how we review some of these things as well. It's certainly not a requirement, but it's something that I'm going to look at when these conversations come up. So
And as far as the school system goes, because the TIF is only on the commercial, for the sections where there's no more residential type homes where there potentially will be families, it's not
Right.
affecting the school
Right.
system.
I think
Correct.
that's a fair statement too.
Correct.
So
Families and seniors.
Yes.
They're included part of that, so. I'll just have households that don't normally have a lot of kids coming out.
yeah.
So it's all good.
Roll.
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Thanks, Commissioners.
you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Next up, we have Linda Hoffman, our county recorder.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have a resolution to shrink the size of county government by dissolving the Medina County Microfilm Board.
I will move to approve.
Second.
Discussion?
I didn't know we had Recorder Musk here today.
Yes, we did. Did you want to?
You know, the Microfilm Board was established back in 2011, and it was at a time when that type of technology for storing record and data was at the forefront. Now, with so many other electronic methods available for maintaining county records across several departments, having the microphone board in charge of that for each of the individual departments just didn't make sense anymore to have folks voting on that. The recorder's office, unfortunately, is still required to maintain microfilm records, and we will do that until the legislature tells us we don't have to, or we get an opinion from a county prosecutor that that's no longer required. So,
Well, and we very much appreciate, through your Recorders Association, bringing to our attention that counties have done this.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. Anything else? Roll.
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Excellent.
thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Holly Murin, Human Resources Director.
Good morning. On our personnel changes resolution today, we have one new hire at Solid Waste District, one rate increase at County Home, one rate correction at Dog Shelter, one leave of absence in sanitary, one leave of absence ending in finance, two resignations in maintenance, and one appointment canceled in maintenance.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion? Roll.
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Thank you.
Holly. Next up, we have Brett Thomas, our Finance Director.
Good morning, Commissioners. I have 6 resolutions for you guys today. Our first one is expenditure adjustments for various funds. This is movement for some of our offices for the Lead Safe Ohio 2023 grant, moving payroll over into the cost of that grant. Our second resolution is cash transfers for various funds. This is actually a reimbursement for when we originally applied for the Lead Safe Ohio grant to be able to reimburse our administrative cost for a portion of that application fee. Our third resolution is expenses for county officials. This one is for the Sheriff's Office for the American Tactical Canine Association Conference. This one is in Butlerville, Indiana, in October. And then our fourth resolution is our weekly bills in the amount of $1,184,282.26. And then we have a 5th resolution and our 6th resolution are both our budget resolutions. So Rhonda, do you want us to do our others
I would
first?
recommend voting on the first 5 and do the
Right.
6th one separate.
Okay.
Okay, so our 5th resolution is the adoption of our official 2026 budget, formal budget. This budget contains all departments except for the prosecutor's office.
Okay, I will move to approve the first these 5 resolutions.
Second?
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes.
And then our 6th resolution is is essentially a split from the 5th resolution, which is the official budget for the prosecutor's office.
I move to approve.
And I'm going to abstain, so if you,
Second?
yeah,
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
abstain.
Sweattick?
Yes.
Very good.
Thank you, Brett.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you, commissioners.
Next up, we have Matt Springer, our county administrator.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have 2 resolutions. The first one is authorizing advertising for a public bid project at the engineering center. This is one of our 2026 capital improvement projects to improve our existing restroom facilities and make them ADA compliant while adding some security improvements to that facility. Second resolution is authorizing an agreement with Garland for the purchase, replacement, and installation of a new roof, also at the engineering center, and this is also a 2026 capital improvement project. We would procure these services through Equalis for state contract purchasing in a total amount of $935,499. We anticipate this work could occur late spring, early summer.
Move to approve both resolutions.
Second?
Discussion? Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
Next up, we have our department updates. First, we have Shannon Ryan from Transit, and I do like this.
Yeah.
I was preparing, that's funny you say that. I was preparing to put in an update for 25, so I'll share that with you, and then, yeah, thank you for that.
I
Appreciate that,
being-
Commissioner.
being serious,
No,
though,
I
I
like
like
it.
that we didn't reprint the
Well, you
date.
know, it's a 25 transition
that
to
was me.
26.
Yes.
No, it
Yeah.
is,
Yeah.
I
very
appreciate
good not
that.
to waste dollars printing.
I did, yeah, we don't want to. So, with that being said, January was a tough month for transit. I think the weather
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. won. I will say that we provided the service, essential services for medical trips. Our Monday, Wednesday, Friday service for dialysis specifically, especially a day like yesterday, we focused mainly on those. Safety will always come first, and we really push that for our drivers and our customers, and we just really focused on that yesterday specifically. I think I comfortably say February is going to be better. The first week of February was wonderful. Ridership returned very much to normal, if not a little bit more. I wanted to just share some numbers over the last, as we go through from 22 to 25, looking at all the data from 22 to 25. I wanted to take a good snapshot for you. I'll present this to you if you want it, but just some numbers is from 22 to 25, our overall ridership year over year increased by 73.58. So because of the flex and the things we've done over the last 3 or 4 years, it's really meant we have more capacity with the same amount of units, which is what we've all hoped for, and these are real numbers. Medina really, was the champion of that increase. We saw a decrease in demand trips, of course, because we brought in normally very costly trips that were the demand trips because they were so long. We basically lowered how many demand trips by 5,100. So the flexes really took on a lot, but that capacity, if you look at it analytically, we basically moved trips from a costly perspective to a less costly perspective. So I really like this, the numbers. I love the data. It tells the story, but it also says that we help more people without adding more units. Now, I did attend the meeting we had recently. Commissioner Hamley was, loves transit, brought us into that. Talking over with the staff and Commissioner Hamley about this is how do we absorb the large amount? We're going to have to get better. We're going to have to get better, and we are. And that means that we're going to have to schedule better. That means we're going to have to communicate with our passengers better. That means because somebody schedules a ride and doesn't plan on taking that ride, we're working on some technology to communicate with them better, like very much like a notification software where 2 days out your doctor's appointment is. Do you need this trip? Do you need your appointment? Yes or no? Also, some things that make the service more seamless where there's something called a geofence where if we're going to pick up somebody, there's either an SMS alert or a phone call saying your bus is 15 minutes away to make it more seamless because a lot of seniors and a lot of people that pass with disability need to take a few minutes. This is it's proven software. We're going to see some of it at another agency soon, but I wanted to talk about it because that gets us better. Leveraging technology without just throwing more buses at it. Now, are more buses going to have to come? Of course. How we do that, we're going to talk about that over the next month or so to try to say, where do we need these units? Now, I give my team a lot of credit. Our operations team talks about what do we do every 6 months to respond to the need. Do we move labor around? Do we move hours around? We've done a lot of that by working within what we have. We try not to add more, and we haven't. So all this is hard work to make sure, and I give the team a lot of credit. The technology that we have coming up will allow us to drive even more change. So I'm hopeful between that, before we buy another bus and put more units out there, we get better. Now, that sounds like a challenge, and we like that. But we have the ability, we've shown the capacity to do this with the units we have and communicate with our customers better. So
I think the flex thing is so wonderful for our community.
it's cool, isn't it?
It's really nice.
Yeah.
And when you do that, you said the weather winds, which is, I think, a takeaway for a lot of different operations in the month of January this year. Are you hearing from customers who are calling to cancel trips, or is it does that only go one way, or are customers opting out of trips sometimes just because the weather's not great?
I would say if it's an advance notice of the weather, that kind of tells.
Yeah.
So people know the snow is coming. The Weather Channel tells them,
Right.
I'm not going out tomorrow. Unless it's for a medical
Right.
purpose, a lot of them just, can I move my trip to the next day? We get a lot of that.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's not really a cancellation, just a movement.
Right.
But after, like yesterday, we needed to tell some folks, probably best if you're home, stay home, be safe.
Yeah.
And we have the ability now to call each one of those folks.
Right.
This software that I mentioned also does, I'm glad you brought that up, it has a way to communicate them holistically, to say, hey, this is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we can communicate with them through the SMS and the texting and the.
Well, that's why I was asking, because in past times, service was either up or it was down, right? And so
Right.
you'd have buses running routes with nobody on them because people are staying in because the weather's no
Right.
good. So now that communication, I think, allows you to be more efficient where
Yep.
you don't have extra buses out on the route.
Yeah.
The other question I had, you mentioned, getting better, which I appreciate. That's kind of the starting point. We're probably not the only transit operation in the state that could use more vehicles. Is that right? Is that a safe assumption?
Ridership after the 2019-20, it kind of dipped.
Okay.
We didn't.
Okay.
Our strategic plan basically was at the right time.
Yeah.
The launching of our strategic plan not only saw us through some of that storm of low ridership for people, but it kind of helped us launch the flex too.
Yeah. Well,
So, yeah.
And part of the reason I asked that too is because we've got, needs in a growing community.
Right.
There are needs in even communities that aren't growing because they just need to modernize and get, more efficient vehicles in their fleet and things like that. And this really has very little to do with you, but it's another issue that's becoming closer to my heart, my involvement with NOACA, which is we spend, I think it's $11 or $12 million a year that's sent to a Swedish company to run e-check. I think that's the number that I learned from my friend Representative Bill Romer.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about how those assets could be deployed specifically in Northeast Ohio, where we're running the e-check, into our transit, because it solves some of the very same problems where you've got the folks who struggle to get reliable transportation struggle. E-check has a disproportionate effect on them. If we could redeploy some of those resources, I'd love to see it go into broader-based public transit in some of the communities like ours, where it's been, primarily, older adults type of an operation or a DD type operation. Love to expand that, and we're going to need resources to do that. So that seems like one that would be somewhat low-hanging fruit if we could make some progress on doing away with e-check.
I will comment that I'm comfortable to say that there's growth opportunity, people going to work.
Yeah.
We had some people We had a call this morning from a young lady that said, I couldn't get to work yesterday because of the snow. I needed to go to work on your bus. So talking to her, it's heartfelt, right?
Right.
But I think the work programs that we have and taking people to work is getting more popular. I had a brief conversation with somebody. It would be great if I could ride the bus to work, even though I have my car, I could save some money. I don't know if the preference or the preferred rider in the county is going to be an opportunity,
Right.
but if it does,
Yeah.
we have to find a way to meet that need too. So it might take a different type of vehicle. It might take some technology changes that we have, an expansion. So I'll definitely, I love to pilot things and try things. I think that's, it's healthy to do that,
Yeah.
you know, especially if you can piggyback and benchmark off some other agencies. So.
But I think your holistic philosophy, the technology has to get better so that we can be more efficient with what we've got, and then we need, and then from there. So I think you're going about it the right way.
It's so amazing what the wonderful things you're doing for the community and how great your department's doing, yet you still want to do better. I admire that very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for
The
sharing.
the team, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The team itself sees opportunity all the time, and I think that's the culture we kind of have in transit. Now, it does come with some challenge in how we roll that out. I think that is the key. How we communicated this was the key to its success. Not only just me going out and speaking to people, but how we're communicating, how we cascade things out to and give some talking points to them, because the schedulers. If I could bring them in, they could tell you story after story after story after story about people that need the service. They're talking to them, so we're trying to really involve them in what the customers are saying. There's a lot of dialogue. There's a lot more dialogue now with our staff to talk about what they're needing. So yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. But getting better, it takes a little time.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate your leadership in developing a culture within the department for public service and the recognition about meeting the needs.
Thanks.
And thank you for sharing that social media post likewise that demonstrates that that flex, meaning flexibility, is first and foremost. There's a demonstration here. You were able to come to aid to someone whenever their other transport company that had made arrangements, that fell down, was not able to provide transportation, and yet we were able to provide that very necessary medical transport.
Yeah, I was going to note
a
that at the end.
97-year-old woman.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that came across a Brunswick post that
Right.
somebody happened to see where an elderly person was stranded. We didn't take them, but that's the culture exactly, is we're here to help, and we didn't take them, but I don't want to say the word rescue, but help them get home, and that we really made a big deal out of that in the office because it was one of our newest folks that cares. So yeah, it was nice to see that, even though we didn't take somebody somewhere, they knew about us. We were that lifeline for them to get home. So thank you for mentioning that before I could.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon.
All right, next up, we have Debbie Kiley from Job and Family Services.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I do not have any resolutions this morning. It feels weird. So I will go right to department updates. And today I'm just going to focus on public assistance rather than the other two divisions. But part of the one big beautiful bill, the HR 1 that was signed, expanded work requirements for both our SNAP and Medicaid populations. So for SNAP requirements, while they were effective immediately, they weren't truly implemented and communicated to recipients until last month. So those that weren't mandatory before got notice and robocalls from the state of Ohio stating that you're now responsible to do an activity. So that population, so for some background, the law requires anyone who's now 18 to 64. It used to be 18 to 50. They've now moved it to 64 years old. They have to complete an activity of at least 20 hours per week in order to continue to receive their SNAP benefits. And that activity can be employment, it could be vocational education, secondary education, community service, it could be working with Ohio Means Jobs. So there's a vast ability for them to cooperate in that activity in order to receive their benefits. The impact of this locally, however, is expanded our population to about 300 more people that are mandatory to do this work requirement. So that means that staff have to review the cases we got a big Excel sheet from the state of Ohio that said, here's all the new people, and you need to do a review of these cases to see, are they working, are they employed, are they exempt, are they receiving Social Security as a disability? So it's been a lot for staff, and it's not only looking at those cases, but what happens is when someone is required to cooperate in this activity, we not only have to assign the activity, plus do a decent amount of data entry into the Ohio benefit system. And then after that activity is assigned, we have to track that activity. So every month, we're going to get reports back. If they're employed, they just have to report if they've stopped working. But if we've assigned them to something, they need to then, wherever we've assigned them, they need to respond to us and say, here's Debbie's schedule. She participated for 20 hours. That's every month we have to look at that. If those individuals fail to cooperate in doing that 20 hours of activity, or if they stop working and don't let us know, they can only receive those benefits for 3 months out of 36 months. So 3 months out of 3 years without doing anything. So if we get a report back that someone has stopped working or is no longer doing their activity, they can only get 1, 2, or the 3rd month of benefits, and then those benefits will automatically terminate. The system will actually, thankfully, go in and terminate their benefits so we don't have to manually do that. They stay closed until one of 3 things happen. The individual re-engages in their activity or becomes employed. They either become exempt, maybe they age out, they turn 65, they move out of state, or they pass that 3-year time period. So essentially 3 months of doing no activity, and then you won't receive your benefits any longer. March is going to be the first countable month for these individuals. So, like I said, staff are reviewing these cases to identify who needs to cooperate. We've also collaborated with Ohio Means Jobs. When we got that list of, hey, these are all the new individuals that are going to be required to participate, we gave them that list and their phone numbers so that they could do some cold calling on our behalf and say, hey, this is the new requirement you're going to be mandatory, and here's how we can help. Most individuals that we would work with that are now this new population, we would refer them to Ohio Means Jobs anyway, especially if they weren't employed and they needed some resume skills or some job searching capabilities. So it was smart of Administrator Schatz to immediately reach out to Ohio Means Job and say, hey, I have an idea. You're probably going to get a lot of these people anyway, so how about we get ahead of it and contact them first. Additionally, because that wasn't enough, any recipient who meets this criteria, they now have to have their assistance reviewed every 6 months. Before it was annually, so we were talking to these people once a year. Now these extra 300 people, we're going to be reaching out to them and interviewing them every 6 months. So it's effectively doubled their caseload. Sadly, no supplemental dollars were provided for this activity from this new rule, so we are doing more work with the same amount of income. The Medicaid work requirements, the state had previously requested a waiver from CMS to implement a work requirement for Medicaid recipients, that same population, 18 to 64. When H.R. 1 passed, it's now federally mandated, so the state doesn't need the waiver anymore, and they're going to move forward with this. That will be effective in January of 2027, and no additional dollars have not been provided for that additional activity. And I'm going to say yet, because there is a provision in the Ohio Department of Medicaid's budget that said additional appropriations may be provided to counties. It's not a shall, it's a may. So hopefully as this kind of they develop the rules, determine the processes for managing this work requirement, that they'll see the need for administrative dollars. Interestingly, though, CMS has announced approximately $6 million to be available to fund an approved vendor in states to implement these Medicaid work requirements. So there's $6 million out there for vendors who want to apply for that. It's my understanding Ohio is looking at that opportunity. I don't know what that will look like, what's going to be this vendor's role. Will they track the assignments? Will they do the assignments? Will they close the Medicaid when somebody doesn't participate? I just don't know what their space is and the county's space within that space. So I'm keeping my ear to the ground as best I can. Any meeting that even sounds like it's going to be about Medicaid work requirements, I'm making a point to join. So a lot of work ahead of us for that division. Questions?
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Any questions?
No.
Okay, great.
Thanks
Thank
for the
you.
update.
Okay, we do have a commissioner resolution appointing an alternate to the Northeast Ohio Area Wide Coordinating Agency, NOACA, for 2026. We are appointing Brandon Gibson.
Make a motion to approve.
Second?
Discussion?
I just want to thank Brandon for being willing to step
Yes.
in and provide that. Quite often, that, as we've found out, when NOACA meets, so does the CCL Board of Directors. So often, even as an alternate, I'm not able to make it because I have to choose between the two, and
Right.
having an alternate that is qualified for that, and Brandon, I know, will do a good job serving and representing the Medina County when Aaron's not able to be there. Appreciate that.
And the other specific reason that this came up was because for standing committee membership, which I'm already serving on the executive and governance committee this year, the other couple standing committees, we can't delegate a one-off alternate. It has to be the board member's alternate that serves in that capacity. And I was a little curious about that, but I did find the language in the actual bylaws. So this helps facilitate that because there's a couple standing committees.
I'll just say, decades ago, that was not the custom.
Right.
I'll just say, that was only a more recent change,
Yeah.
I guess, with the last decade, that the bylaws were changed to reduce the ability for to have other alternates serve that position. So that makes it a little bit more difficult for the state, but that only applies to standing committees, correct?
That's right.
Yeah.
So actually, my alternate for the Economic Development Subcommittee is Julie McNabb, who happens to be here today. But so those spots you could always appoint.
That's
and
right.
I find it better when we use alternates because there's just so many committees up there that
Might
it's
say
continuity.
too many.
Right. Continuity of attendance makes sense. If I go to 3 meetings and then my alternate goes to 1 out of every 4, what's the point? If I go to 1 out of every 4, what's the point? So I like to have somebody who can kind of, as an alternate, cover the ones that I say maybe are going to be harder for me to get to. So that's where Brandon's involvement in a more, regular regard, I think, is going to be beneficial. So thanks for your willingness.
Okay, roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes. Okay, next up, we have public comments. Do we have any? Seeing none, I'm going to move on to discussion sessions. Steve?
Nothing. Matt, were you going to be, what did Matt have a
Matt,
first?
would you like to go first?
I asked him to make an announcement as the, what happened this weekend. He grimaces.
It's a good, Sarah will like this story.
Yeah, so on,
Get your camera in.
so Friday morning, we lost the entire network throughout the county. We quickly scrambled to try to identify what the problem was. Our redundancy, which we should have had 4 in place, for some various reasons were not configured properly, and obviously we experienced a failure. Originally, we thought that when we traced back where the break in our backbone occurred, we believed initially that it was caused by a contractor likely doing underground boring work and had clipped a line. We later learned, of all things, it was actually a squirrel. A squirrel had made a nest inside of our fiber backbone, had chewed through the lines, and took the entire county down.
One squirrel.
So we met yesterday with IT staff, with both Lightspeed, who's one of our internet providers, as well as Dave Carrata from the Fiber Network, to discuss what had happened and how we make sure this never happens again in the future. So we've got plans in place. The repairs were made Sunday evening around 6 o'clock. There was a replacement of about 500 linear feet of fiber. We had to install new boxes within the ground to house the new fiber cables. So there's a significant amount of work that had to occur over the weekend to get us all back online. So we apologize for the inconvenience. It's hard to make this stuff up. That's what happened.
That's up to social media to make that.
Do we have any pictures of the nest for Sarah?
You go on social media over this weekend, there was a plethora of explanations. The only thing I didn't see was aliens. So, anyway.
I do have one other discussion
I'm sorry.
item.
Great.
Yeah.
That's quite all right. Discussion item. We were recently contacted by Sustain ED. Sustain ED operates the community garden at 302 East Liberty. They had requested to install at their own expense a new driveway which would come off of Jefferson. So that way they would be able to back up equipment into the community garden and make improvements going forward. The indefinite lease that we have in place with Sustain ED just requires that we authorize prior approval before they make any improvements. So they'd like to proceed with city permits, and in order to do so, they need to have the property owner's blessing to move forward. So
I'm
You know,
fine
when-
with that.
Yeah, when we first made the agreement with them, one of the ongoing agreements was as long as they took care of the property, and they've kept it
Yeah,
beautiful. It's really a beautiful asset. So I'm fine
we,
with
we
that.
did take a look at whether or not they could install that driveway off of East Liberty instead of Jefferson. But due to trees that already exist along East Liberty, they'd have to take out several of them. And the driveway would be considerably longer, therefore increasing the price significantly. So, again, they'll comply with all the city requirements when they pull that permit, but we just needed to have that discussion to make sure we're in a
Yes, I think it's great.
We're good. Oh, yeah.
Okay. That was it.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, Steve, you're back up.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody that came last Tuesday to the demographic study. Got a lot of good feedback from some of the public officials there. That is now encouraging conversation. I think there was such information that once they got a copy of it, they were able to share with some of their other decision makers. In a lot of regards, some of it wasn't new, but it reinforced things that many of our agencies and the public entities out there are already doing. So it gives a comfort level to those that make the decision that you have an independent analysis that says pretty much the same thing, and very helpful for them in making sure that they are following the right path in terms of preparing for the growth and the changes, demographic changes Medina County is going through.
It was really a wonderful presentation.
Yeah, it was. It did a great job.
It was great.
Do we have any record keeping of how many downloads that gets or anything? Because it's just posted on the website now. Just curious. I'm sure there are a lot of people who are,
We might be able to look at some analytics.
yeah,
and see.
who are checking it out. But I agree. I thought it was a really good presentation. It's good to hear or see, I guess, the data that backs up kind of our own intuitive, kind of the perceptions we have circumstantially based on housing starts and kind of demand for housing in the community, and see that the numbers bear that out. So I know there's more places to go from here, and I think it's up to us to help kind of drive the conversation around that in these other pockets where they're going to come to make sure that data is informing decision making that other organizations are making. So yeah, thanks for taking the lead on making that happen.
That was it.
Do you have anything?
No.
Anybody else? I would like to thank Economic Development. On Thursday, we were invited to participate in their monthly member meeting at a
Where's our
game
trophy?
show.
Yeah,
at
the
a
trophy
game
should be
show.
up here. We should
And
have
I
it.
Where's our
thought,
trophy?
I thought you'd like to
Yeah.
do some trash talking on who
Well,
won.
I think the score, I don't know that the Mariners are going to be as sore losers as the Canadian hockey team was. And
Right,
so,
right.
who was better or
Right,
who should have
right,
won. But yeah, the final score usually is the best indicator of that, and we came out on top. So
Yes, we did.
it was a thrilling victory. We did give them just a little bit of confidence heading into the final round, and but it wasn't close at the end, is my
No,
recollection.
but it was really an enjoyable event, and we appreciate the invite.
Yep.
Okay.
Steve made a comment about the residential area adjacent to the tip, and it probably would not impact the school as much. Does that mean it's multifamily?
There is some, as
There's
I understand
three.
it, there's a senior level portion of it,
There's-
the development.
Yeah, senior family type homes and then retail. So there's three. There's
Similar to Redwood or?
I'm not sure. Brandon, you can talk to Brandon Gibson a little bit. He has more detail with the exact, but a lot of that obviously is working through the township, and but the purpose was for the overall benefit of the whole project, and it made it happen. And obviously, the county benefits from the retail development from the sales tax. So it was kind of a win-win, and there was a significant contribution by the developer to the school district to
And it's-
offset. Yeah.
especially the win-win because the TIF is only on the retail side. So
Yep.
it is a
Yep.
win. So before I entertain a motion, I just want to announce that we will return to discussion session after our executive session today for a presentation regarding the water and sewer rate study and the future of the Chippewa wastewater treatment plant.
All right. I'll make a motion, we go into executive session for the purpose to discuss imminent litigation and to consider the sale of real property.
Second.
Roll.
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
hold up. I know, I'm just explaining to everyone. Okay, we are up and live, continuing our commissioners meeting from this morning. And so we are going to start with Jeremy.
Thanks, everybody. I know back, I think it was in November, I got approval to move forward with Raf Tillis to perform a rate study to look at all of our future infrastructure needs and how that relates to what our rates would look like moving forward with those. And I have Scott Hadler here. He's with Raf Tillis, and we got a memo that he had drafted up to the commissioners. So I went ahead and forwarded that memo to the three of you for your review. And he's here to kind of just present and discuss the findings. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Alrighty, so as Jeremy mentioned, Scott Hadler with Raf Tillis, we put together a rate study for the water and sewer funds, just looking at the total cost of the system and really what the revenues and rates are needed to be in order to cover the costs of the systems. So I have a presentation here. Looks like you guys all have a hard copy in front of you. So I'll just kind of talk through this briefly. Feel free to interject with any questions as we go through it. So first, just kind of taking a high-level look at the goals of the financial planning study and what we were trying to accomplish. So one, looking at a roadmap and looking to see where the utilities are headed and how are we going to get there. It's a few things to look at with that, just keeping pace with rising operating costs. The utility industry has been hit particularly hard when it comes to inflation, even more so than the other industries. So addressing that, and then funding upcoming capital improvements. Have the two amounts listed there for this upcoming year, and then we have the capital plans I'll show in a few slides that kind of show the full picture of all the projects that are coming up, so how we're going to fund those. And then just maintaining the system assets as we look at the aging infrastructure of the system, things breaking, needing replaced. These pipes, everything, the plants are years and years, are very old and needing maintained and upkept. So looking at how we can put a plan in place to fund those improvements. Next item, just making sure we have defensible rates to support these objectives. So making sure that the rates that are in place are what we say fair, just, and equitable. So making sure that the rate structure and the rates that are in place are defensible from that standpoint. And then just looking at the financial objectives, cash reserves and debt service coverage are two of the main ones that we tend to look at as we go through this.
So for that standard that you apply, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase the question. Do you evaluate the fair, just, and equity standard of the rates relative to what, when you do this for anybody, not just for us, relative to what needs to be spent when you talk about these capital expenditures and things like that, to say, okay, in light of the fact we've got $100 million of expenses staring us in the face, this is a fair, just, and equitable way to go about it? Or is that a truly objective standard across the board, meaning this is fair, just, and equitable for the system that is a like system? Because if like system is dictated by cap X, I get a little bit more nervous about whether or not we're talking about what we mean when we say fair, just, and equitable.
Yes, great question. Never been asked that before. But and in this instance, I think it's kind of both. Typically, we look at, kind of system specific. Every system is very different, depending geography, age of the system. There's just a number of different factors that go into it. And there's a graph later on that kind of shows a comparison. But really, it's tough to compare because of the different factors.
Right.
But
that's what my sense was.
Yeah. So we try to, but at the same time, try not to, because every need is different for these different utilities.
Yeah, I know. And you've got that chart in there with a very comparison. But when you look at our obviously our geography as well as the varying age. I mean, comparing us to like a Vermilion, which is very much concentrated, and where we're talking about miles of lines, whether it's either water or sewer, as well as the capacity issues. Entirely different, but right. But everyone is an enterprise system and has to pay for it. The users have to pay for it. Yes. And that's the real question: is how do you distribute that burden?
Yes, exactly.
Well, and that, and that's where, if the premise of the presentation, I just want to understand that the premise of the presentation is we have these, we know we have these expenses in our future. But if the premise of the presentation is, in light of the fact that it's going to cost $100+ million, you know, I guess maybe if you could help as you go through it, explain what you would be looking for to have a finding that something's out of line with that. Because if the premise is we have to spend $100+ million on capital expenses, then it would be hard in my mind to figure out when something is out of line, right?
Yeah.
So recognizing that the upgrades need to be made, but maybe just help for my own understanding of the presentation, what you were looking at to say that things aren't out of line. Is that,
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that
yeah.
fair?
I'll certainly do my best to
Okay.
to try and help with that. And if I'm going through it and you think of something related to it and I'm not hitting it,
Yeah.
just let me know.
Yep.
But I will
Appreciate
try
it.
and touch on that as I go through it. So here's just a graph showing operating expenses for the water and sewer utilities. The past 3 years, you can see there have been decent increases. And I will say, as I mentioned, the utility sector has seen inflation at a much higher level. So I think management's done a good job of keeping these costs down. We've seen 20, 30, 40% increases in operating expenses over the past few years as the cost of chemicals, supplies, salaries, everything has gone up pretty significantly. But I think in this instance, we've kind of looked at the historical trends and where we think it's headed and have these smaller gradual increases as we see, inflation kind of start to slow down a little bit. But I think from an operating expense standpoint, so those are going to be your day-to-day operating costs. Both utilities have done a great job of managing those costs as we've looked over the past few years and look towards the future as well. So looking at the water system specifically, we have the capital improvement plan here. So you can see over the next 8 years or so, kind of what's on the horizon. The top 2/3 there are going to be funded with future debt, and the bottom are going to be your kind of annual cash capital improvement items as things break, need replaced. Those smaller items that happen on an annual basis. Whereas in 2026 and 2027, there's the two larger projects as well as other additional projects. The two large ones being the Brunswick Hill Water Tower and then the Westfield Water Plant in 2027, which are both highlighted there. But really, this is the scope of the water capital improvements. So about $4.5 million per year for cash, and kind of a metric we use on that. You can go about it a few different ways. It's as I mentioned, every system's kind of different in terms of what's needing replaced depending on the age of the system. But one kind of general metric is looking at your capital assets and really making sure you're kind of keeping up with depreciation of those assets. So, taking total asset or system value, and typically we assume about 2% of that each year. In this instance, the $4.5 million is certainly keeping up and maintaining that depreciation expense or replacing the assets as they should be being done there from a cash standpoint. And then in addition to the larger projects that are needing those big replacements as well. So that's kind of one thing we look at, or one little sniff test we do when looking at capital improvements and thinking if those are kind of in line with other utilities. In this instance, it certainly was. So, those projects that are going to be debt funded, certainly going to be factored into the rates when we look at how it's going to be paid for. So we have a schedule here showing the debt service, and this is kind of one of the operating expenses I mentioned have been increasing, but it's really these projects and these capital improvements that are really driving the rate increases that we have. So you can see here on this graph we have your existing debt service, which is the dark green lines, and then the future debt that will be coming on to help fund these future projects. The lighter shade of green. So you can see there is existing debt rolling off, which certainly helps. However, there is a chunk of these projects that need to be financed and will result in this additional debt service. But really spreads the cost over that 20, 30 year period to really match the life of the asset. and with the interest rates through OWDA and whatnot, it really is a very efficient form of financing these projects.
And Scott, those are annual payments, correct, for debt?
Correct, yes. Yep.
And you mentioned OWDA. They're essentially underwriting the debt. Is that or are they providing? We're paying the debt service. This is the portion of the debt service that we're responsible for, right?
That's correct. Yes.
So OWDA's involvement is the financing arm of it.
Correct.
Yeah, they're not. It's not they're not funding any of it per se, other than allowing us to stretch the
construction loans through them, or
Yep.
they'll have EPA, which uses OWDA.
Yeah, we could basically have bargain rate.
Yep.
Yeah, those are the preferential rates.
Less
right,
than market
yes.
rate
Yep.
if we had to go out. yeah.
Yep.
Yep. So then bringing it all together, kind of looking at the three pieces here. So this is more of a visual. The next slide is kind of the numbers behind it. Just depends on which way you want to look at it. So here with the visual, over the next 8 to 10 years, the line being the revenues collected, and the bars being the different components of the total expenses of the utility and the breakout there. So you can see, that yellow line being that future debt, as the prior slide showed, kind of coming online and increasing that, the cash funded capital. So for 26 and 27, you can see those expenses are greater than the revenues. And a couple slides will kind of give you a better idea of why that is. But really, it's so the cash reserves can be utilized to help kind of phase in that increase. So it's not a large upfront increase, and it can be more gradual annual increases as opposed to, let's just say a 40% increase now that can be spread out over a multi-year period. And the cash reserves are there to kind of absorb those 2 years. And then in the future, rebuilding those cash reserves.
And so this is that slide. The debt that's reflected on there is all that's necessary to fund the full 52 million of
yes. This is encompassing
Yep.
the full capital plan.
Okay.
So this is really the whole picture. Yep.
Yep. Thanks.
Yep.
With keeping a sufficient cash reserve
Mm-hmm.
to deal with, I'll just say, immediate capital improvements or, fixing water geysers like we had yesterday.
Yeah.
On 42. Yeah.
All right. And then the next slide just kind of gives the numbers behind it. If you're more of a numbers person, this is what I prefer to look at, but some people prefer the visual. So you can see again in 26 and 27, there's the line with the net system cash flow in the negative. So you can see the cash balance down below that, absorbing that, and then slowly building back up over those next few years.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions on, well, actually, sorry, I forgot I had one more slide, the main thing.
Water rate.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Can you maybe just touch on the reserve balance and what the AWWA recommendation is for fund balances?
Yep. So there's really two metrics, and I mentioned them earlier on, that we try and look at and maintain with the utility. So one is going to be a cash balance and fund balance, or days cash on hand is kind of the metric that's typically used. The other being debt service coverage, so making sure you have enough net revenues to pay your debt service, and then a small cushion of about 25% in this instance is what's recommended. For the cash and fund balances, what AWWA recommends and kind of the industry best practice is, with your operating, about 180 days cash on hand. So we have that number there, and that's typically what I would say is the bottom floor, kind of the minimum recommendation. So you can see it's in those years it does go below that. However, as we phase up those rates, build back up. I think, from my opinion and working with Jeremy, I think those 2 years of kind of those decreases will be able to be absorbed, and then slowly build up over those next few years. The alternative being larger rate increases in those earlier years and less later on. It's just, in the end, it's the same. It's just how you want to layer in that rate increase. So looking at what that results in from a rate perspective. So with the water rates, there's two components to the rates. There's the debt fee and the usage rate. The usage rate being the variable rate that is paid per 1,000 gallons, and the debt fee being a fixed cost each month that is paid. In this instance, the debt fee, the theory behind that really is that the revenue is collected, pay the debt service. So in this instance, as we increase that debt service coming online, that's the bulk of really what's driving this. And as we look at, that first line, the debt fee increase that's necessary, while the percentages are kind of deceivingly high, and it's just one component of that bill, you can see it's about a $2 for that first year, about a $2.50 increase.
Can I ask a question? Why?
Yes.
Why so? Understand the debt, but did we do projections on not having it be so impactful in the first 3 years and then level off to zero in the last? Did we do any projections on having that be more moderate across the years?
We could, so I've smoothed it out kind of the best I could from our standpoint. The only other alternative would be looking at the projects and when those would need to be financed and phasing those in over a different period, or looking at what years those projects would need to be completed. But as the capital plan currently stands, there's not a lot of wiggle room.
Well, that would basically hit our cash on hand, days cash on hand, that we would actually go dip lower, would we not? If you ended up trying to level off rather than that increase of
Yes.
7%, they'd give you less cash.
Yes.
Because of the usage, and which means we're right now, we're kind of, you're going down to 116, and when our target's 180. So we're already dipping down even when we've increased the usage. Correct?
Exactly. And I think,
I was looking more at the 25%, like just to have, you know what I mean? I was
Yes.
looking more at the top thing, how, not the
Well,
seven.
you're talking about the debt as opposed to the
Yeah.
usage. Oh, I'm sorry.
I was saying 25%, 12%,
Got it, the debt
9%,
fee, sorry.
and then 0, 0, 0. It seems to me, as a finance person, it just seems like an extreme way to do it, because I don't know. I guess I just find it hard to believe in 2030, 30, 31, 32 that we'll go to 0, 0, 0. And so those are extreme percentages loaded up front. I was looking at that.
and I think the reason it kind of drops off to zero is, as it currently stands, there's no additional debt coming online after 2029. So that's the reason for that.
And that's a question for Jeremy too, I think, because, that's the thing that jumps off the page at me is when I look at 30, 31, 32.
Right.
The assumption that we're not going to have any
Yeah.
new debt-funded projects.
Well, at least for future commissioners have to make that decision, but we have that 23 million in 2027 of the Westfield water plant, or the regional, I'll call it the Westfield
Yeah.
Regional
Yeah.
Water Plant. That's not Westfield Village. But the point is we've got that 23 million that has to be financed. And so when do you get the money in?
I just
Yeah,
asked if there
yeah.
was any projections where
Yeah.
those 6 years where it was a more moderate spread out, where it's not 0, 0, 0 in the last 3 years, and maybe the 25 and the 12% could be a little bit. It was just a question I asked, if there was
Yeah,
projections spreading that percentage out over 6 years versus 3.
But I guess the answer is the cash hit.
The
up front.
cash would be
yeah,
much
yeah.
more significant.
Yeah,
I think
that's right. Yeah.
there's a slide 17 that kind of shows a big picture, kind of dollar-wise, of what that impact is each year. That I think might help. I think the percentages can, like I said, can get a little misleading.
And I can clarify a little bit. When we run short on the debt service, what we end up having to do is transfer money out of our operating fund to the debt fund to queue us up to whatever that payment requirement would be for our debt.
I guess looking at what we've done, I think it's no insult to anyone. I think it's an unrealistic chart to say 0, 0, 0 on both those lines when we're having
Well, I guess-
such extreme increases.
Well, we're not, at this point, we've got no projects planned.
But
Doesn't
that's-
mean there won't be one.
Right, and that's
correct.
And so,
Yeah.
what does the future look like? I mean, nobody's holding you to it, I promise. But what does the future look like in 30, 31, 32? Because do we have a realistic belief that these projects that we're doing now are going to be sufficient through that period of time, or do we think realistically because we hear a lot about deferred maintenance and things in the system. Is the realistic belief that we're going to have other projects too? I recognize there's a point of diminishing returns with a review like this, but to his point, a very important assumption here is that there isn't any new debt coming online in those years. So what does that look like?
I would say for sure we're talking about putting a new water tower down in the Westfield area to further our groundwater source from farther north. Until we get better idea of where that location might be. It was hard to project when that might be ready, but that's probably hitting in the 2031 years.
And what, if we were to do that today, what would a project like that cost?
Today,
Yeah.
$6 million,
Okay.
roughly.
Yeah.
And then you also need a pump station. You need distribution lines to
So
that.
$10 to $12 million is reasonable
Sure.
for,
Yeah, I mean,
if it were
yeah,
today's
yeah.
dollars. Yeah, okay.
Depending on how far we have to go, and
We don't have any other facility construction in this.
I would say that, I mean, as far as large like treatment plant,
Yeah.
we have Chippewa that we've been looking at with our Westfield well basically having to be abandoned. The Greenwich wells that we got from Westfield Village when we purchased their water system, those wells are not usable, and we're going to have to abandon those. So we do have Chippewa wells, and we just started talking about what does that look like about redeveloping those wells there, because I think they're only 8-inch, 6-inch lines currently for the wells. I mean, or, let's go to a 24-inch, get more production out of the
Right.
Chippewa as a backup. So these are all conversations we just started having because we just learned that those.
So to Aaron's point, for full transparency to the community, it's probably unlikely both those columns that are zeroed out will be zero.
Unlikely.
Yeah, but
it's
at this
significant
point,
to see,
that's the zero increase. In other words, that the debt fee is flat, is basically what we're saying.
Well, that's an interesting
Until you
point.
get an
But I mean-
additional project.
That's an interesting point, because
both
that
are
debt
at
service will be being paid down over that period of time, but this is,
Yeah.
but that's paid over 30.
20 years.
20
Yeah.
years.
Typically.
So it's not, that, we don't have new capacity for projects necessarily while we're still paying down that initial. So, right, I mean, that's, because that's, if it's a
It's
20-year payment cycle.
It's the debt fee.
Yeah.
Yeah, at this point, unless some other projects need to come forward, an expansion of the system or huge capital investment for the existing. I mean, at this point, who would have thought 5 years ago that we were going to have to do what we're doing in the Westfield with the Garmin
Right.
Road and all that development, because
I mean, that kind of came on pretty quick with the gas well development.
with that gas well,
Yeah.
which
And
basically
nobody's-
put us in
No,
non-compliance.
and nobody's pointing fingers over that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just think we've got a plan. There's going to be other unexpected things that
Oh, yeah.
happen over the
Yes.
next 10-year period.
And the
too.
only way,
That's my point.
well,
That I can probably
Yeah.
guarantee.
Yeah, yes, we can all agree on that. Yeah, I will hold you to that.
Yep.
So as I look at your water debt service, the with the existing and future, which that is a helpful way for me to look at it. By the time we get to 2032, we've got $1 million of existing that's leveled off at that point. What's the timeline for that to go away?
I would have to look back
Okay.
on those loans.
I have that
Yeah,
information,
I don't have it
but
in
yeah,
front
I'd
of me.
have to
I'm just curious
look
about it, and just add that maybe to the list, because, I mean, presumably that could create some capacity, to Steve's point, within our $15.25 debt fee that we'll have by then, if that is servicing debt that no longer is on the books. Obviously, it still is in 2032, but at some point it won't be. There's capacity there for some of these improvements that we don't, But, yeah, I think the presumption is that is going to continue to go up. So, I mean, I think we can all agree on that. And if this bite that we have to take now helps us so we don't have to do a 25% increase at points in the future, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that would. Yeah, that's definitely the plan.
all right.
Anything else on the water side?
Nope, that's good for me, yeah.
All right, switching over to sewer. Pretty similar story here on the sewer side, with the exception of a larger amount of capital projects. So you can see here the $10 million. What is that? Canby building.
Canby.
In 2026, $40 million. The Medina Road sanitary sewer replacement, and then the large one being the Chippewa wastewater treatment plant in 2029. And then also the Liverpool plant of $150 million starting in 2029. And that's been phased in over a 5-year period, which I think you'll see helps kind of phase in those rates as mentioned. And then kind of the same thing with the cash funding capital improvements, about $4.5 million each year for those items as well.
And maybe I can talk on the Liverpool, $30 million each year. That was just a best guess at this point. we went and talked to the Ohio EPA regarding the capacity issues that we're running into at Liverpool. In our conversations, at least some sort of compliance schedule was mentioned, but I have not heard back from them. I did reach out to the Ohio EPA the other day just to see if I heard if they had any discussions. I got an out of office email until March 5th, so I'll wait to hear back. But that was just at least to get something on here that, and guessing at, we're going to have in the neighborhood of 150 million in upgrades needing to be done, and that was my best stab at trying to get something on the books.
In some ways, that might be the most conservative estimate, though. I mean, there might be bigger chunks that need to come sooner.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But we've got in 2027, basically, the kind of 11 million, basically involving the Hinckley wastewater treatment plant upgrades that are needed. You've just kind of separated those out independently, but still that's, a considerable expense in 2027. Hits us in terms of debt.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, this also encompasses, I believe, the full scope of the capital improvement plan, and the rates we recommend or are showing, proposing, encompass the full scope as well.
Got it.
And then looking at the debt service, you can tell it's a little more gradual on the sewer side in terms of coming online, because it's kind of staggered out over that 6-year period or so, as opposed to the water side was a little more upfront. So this allows us, as you'll see on the next slide, to kind of phase those rates in a little more gradually over that period as opposed to the initial upfront increase. And that's where this graph here looks at the total expenses again, revenues, and looking at those revenues increasing over that time horizon in order to fund those increases in operating costs and proposed debt service as well. And again, kind of the same concept there in 2029 and 2030, with using those cash balances to help absorb some of those increases in order to phase that in over that period. You can see 28's a little higher, and that's just rather than going flat and then a big jump, just kind of gradually increasing those to get to that end point is what's typically recommended. Then again, we have the numbers associated with that.
So on that one, it does appear to me that we don't get nearly as close to the target 180 days. We carry a lot more cash reserves.
Correct.
Is there a reason for that?
Not
all else being
particularly.
equal, if we spent those down closer to the ratio, could we defer some of the increases?
In theory, yes, but then if you look at the debt service coverage ratio,
The one does drop below, yeah.
So it's tricky because as sewer's adding on all of this debt, that's where that additional revenue above the debt service needs to come in play, and is higher as you add that more, or a larger number as you increase that debt. That 10% gets higher and higher. So it's kind of balancing those two. You did that the best we could without sacrificing one more so for the other.
Yep, okay.
Well, we're basically, we're going up quite a bit in terms of our debt, all at once, when you kind of look at what goes on a line in 27. That's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I see it.
So then what that means from a rate perspective, similar rate structure on the sewer side. There's the debt fee and then a monthly base rate. Instead of being based on volume, it's just a fixed rate as well. So again, that debt fee is increasing to make sure that those revenues collected from the debt fee cover the debt service payments. So again, showing a 25% increase for the debt fee and a 3% for the base rate. But if you combine those two, it's really about a 9% increase in that first year in 2027 to a total normal average user.
Right.
$11 to $38.50 in 6 years. That's a lot.
And what is that, if you take the first year, it becomes 9, what is the blended rate by 2032?
It is about, let's see, I have a note here. It's about a 7% if you look
From
at
2031.
So over the 6-year period, it's about a 7% increase per year. If you look at
7%.
water and sewer.
Okay,
In the
I get you.
aggregate, yep.
Yeah.
I could look at that specific, but really in total, and that's kind of where this graph here kind of shows. For an average user, we assume 5,000 gallons. That's a common metric used across the state and industry. So looking at 2026, it's about $10 a month for the average user for 27, 28, and 29. And then it gets smaller after that, as we saw on the water side and even sewer as well. There's some of those increases up front that tend to level off. So really, it's about a 6.7% annual increase to the combined water and sewer bill for the average user. And this is kind of where you can see we tried to smooth. From a percentage standpoint, it doesn't look like we smoothed it in, but from a total bill perspective, it's just those two components of the bill that get a little confusing when you look at it from a percentage standpoint. So
For those, though, basically, yeah, you're looking at water and sewer combined. And we've got a lot of customers that are just on sewer. Or just on water, yeah.
It's just in a 6-year period, so more than double their bills to 156. That's going to be a huge hit for fixed income people.
Well, it comes down to all the capital improvements they have to make.
Yeah, and I will say.
I know it is
No,
from.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
still.
Oh, yeah.
It still will hurt the fixed income people.
Yeah, and from that standpoint, on the capital improvement side, I gave a very similar presentation last week to a community up in the area, and have another one tomorrow. I think you guys are not alone in that regard. Every community is facing this challenge of the aging infrastructure and how they're going to fund it. With the regulations, EPA mandates, whatever it might be, it's just a tough time with capital improvements and projects that need to be done. And the other presentations I've given are not as pretty of a picture, unfortunately for them. But I think, the plan that we have laid out, while, we're not exactly sure how it'll all play out when it comes time to doing the projects and whatnot, I think this puts you in a very good spot. And I think you can see that from this comparison chart here. This is a snapshot in time of these other communities. I know a lot of these places are.
I'm sorry. Can we run back to the last one real quick? I just had another question on that. If we start from this, just looking at the sewer portion of this, because that's what we just looked at, the starting point in 26, 4375, jumping to 2032, it's 4375 to 80 in the sewer portion. You following me?
Mm-hmm.
Just the green. What doesn't make sense to me is if the overall increase is 2750 for the debt service, how is the 4375 to 80 dollars less than just the increase in the debt service alone? Mm-hmm. So if I take where we are for debt service right now is $11 per month in 2026, it jumps to 38.50, so that's 27.50.
Mm-hmm.
If I take 43.75 and add 27.50, I think I get 80.25 or 81.25. So it causes me some concern that those numbers aren't following even the debt service increase.
No.
Did I add it? Did I carry an extra one?
Yeah, you said
Okay. 27 is 70. 25. So the increase. Because what I was trying to do when I started. Thank you, Brandon. It would be 70. I was corrected from the audience. He doesn't have a microphone, but I'm going to make sure that makes the record. So the increase, because I was trying to isolate the increase in debt service versus service fee or consumption. So the increase in consumption isn't projected to be all that significant, less than $10.
Correct, and that's the bottom line here.
That makes more
on
sense.
On the sewer rate plan slide, yeah, it goes from
Yeah, the
$32.75 to
$9.
$41.50.
Perfect. Now those numbers make sense to me. Thank you.
So that should, I hope, reconcile the $38.50 and
Yep.
$41.50.
Yep.
Okay.
But this chart also assumes that we're 0, 0, 0 in the last 3 years. So
On the
these-
water side. But, yeah.
Yeah.
Just want to focus on the sewer part, which it seems to be.
Which
Well, no,
continue to
We have
both
a lot of
charts were
decisions. Well, yeah,
0.
right.
Yeah, we're 0,
right,
0,
yeah.
0. So
Well-
this cost out of pocket, it assumes 0, 0, 0 on the
No, the
last
sewer
year.
Our sewer goes up.
Continues to increase.
Sewer goes up. Sewer, either the
water.
base rate as well as the debt.
So assume,
That's like
yeah.
number 15.
So, yeah, so these numbers, though, to be clear, are assuming the zeros on the last 3.
Just for the water.
Yes,
Yeah.
in both columns. When I say both columns, I meant debt and fee.
Right, oh, you're right, on the water side,
Yeah,
yes,
that's what- when
yes,
I said
yep,
both, that's
yep,
what I-
Yep, okay. Yeah, agreed.
So then, looking back at the comparison and where the rates will be in 2027, I think a lot of these communities are going through the same thing as I mentioned. So this is a snapshot in time, but it's oftentimes a leapfrog effect where, we're showing your 2027 rate. A lot of these communities this year will be looking at studies as well and tend to jump over. So even I think looking at it as it currently stands, still very competitive rates when it comes to other communities in the area and similar size and whatnot. Which again, just to add an asterisk, it is tough to compare depending on the age of the system and all the other factors that go into it. But I think it just shows that they are still very competitive rates.
And those are all municipal systems. Meaning
Yes.
less miles of lines and things
Well,
of that nature.
exactly.
Probably not, right now, not investing in 3 major wastewater treatment plants.
Less infrastructure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've got so much investment coming in, and I know when the Liverpool plant was built, and like you're talking about in the 70s and so forth, there was federal assistance for EPA. That was one of the things that Ken Holtz sold,
Right.
and was able to do that. Right now, when you apply to the state, let's face it, if they're going to give $1 million to go between a park district and a wastewater treatment plant, guess where the legislators put their $1 million? They're going to put it to a park every time before
Right.
they would give it for a sewer plant.
To be fair,
Yeah.
the numbers that we're illustrating up there don't
Yeah.
include the lion's share of the increase either, but
Yeah.
but we're starting out on par, and like you say, these other ones are going to be putting more into that at some point
Exactly.
too. So
Mm-hmm.
we're somewhere towards the middle, and we should probably expect, if we did this in 2032, we would expect to stay there, I would
It'd
imagine.
still be in the middle, yeah.
So just a few notes to wrap up. And again, if there's any further questions, happy to answer them. But, just there are those larger upfront increases as we look at that debt service coming online. From the grand scheme, it's about a 7% increase per year for the both water and sewer combined over that next 6-year period. And we show a 6-year period. It's not uncommon for communities to adopt a 3-year rate plan, and then in 3 years, once we get down the road a little bit, have more information on the projects, operating costs, whatever it might be, revisit it and take a better look. 'Cause, looking out past 3 years, who knows what's going to happen, as we've seen over the past 6 years or so. So that's kind of one approach that a lot of communities do take. Is just kind of doing a smaller chunk and then revisiting everything again.
Okay, I see the other communities on this chart make sense to me. Oberlin, Silver Lake, and Vermillion seem kind of remote from us, but the other ones seem to make sense to use as a comparison.
Any other questions? I know it's a
No.
lot of information,
No, that's good.
a lot of numbers, a lot of graphs. So if there's any clarification, hopefully I kind of
How
touched
often
on-
do you say we should continue to do this? How often do you recommend?
We typically recommend about every 3 years,
Yeah.
kind of for the reasons described. Looking out beyond that period, you don't know what projects are going to be upcoming, what inflation's going to look like really. So that's kind of best practice, and what a lot of communities do is about a 3-year rate cycle. So they'll adopt rates for increases going into effect, whatever your rate cycle is. Let's just say June 1 of each year for the next 3 years. Get to the end of that, and if cash is looking good, projects are kind of on track with what we've seen.
it might not be necessary. But if not, if things have changed, different projects, different dollar amounts, whatever it might be, then it's probably a good time to revisit this. And now that, one's been done, it's typically a little more efficient, those future times to just update some numbers and go from there.
And then to Colleen's question, are there other, if we were to look at other like regional providers, is our assumption correct that we would look better compared to people who have a footprint similar to ours?
I think so. Let me make a note.
Those three just seem kind of remote for, like the other ones, they're right in our area.
Okay, I'll look into that, and I can send some info on
regional
some others.
sewer. How do we compare to Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District in terms of sewer? They don't do water. That's the
maybe that's
that's
why
the
they
problem of
didn't make
doing
the
both
list.
water and sewer together.
Yeah.
Because there are those that are just focused on sewer, and that I think is the
But
largest area. Of
I would be
comparison.
interested in seeing because
Yeah.
the regional analogy is the one that I feel like is missing from that chart. But I think the more we saw that, I bet we'd see maybe even a clearer picture that we're ahead of the curve. Because comparing us to municipals, I think is because of the footprint of their systems is going to be more likely to be less favorable for us. So.
That's because right now we're doing the combined comparison of water and
Right.
sewer
No,
together, as opposed to just sewer. And
That
I
makes
think that's
perfect
maybe
sense.
we ought to,
Right.
if we really want to focus on sewer, let's look at comparable systems for sewer.
Yeah.
Akron probably would fit within that category because they're large and they have old, and so I mean there are some of those that are. But like I said, regional sewer, I don't know how we compare with. Trying to think if anything is similar in geography. If anything, the demographic consultant says we're kind of unique in the region.
Yeah.
Because of our growth.
And that's always
a lot
going to
of-
be hard
yeah.
to find comparables on.
Yeah.
That's, that was the other thing that kind of stood out to me. So.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, like, our we have, I think it's 500 miles of water and sewer mains in the county for 20,000 water customers and about 40,000 sewer customers. The city has 12,000 customers, but it's confined to just these limits. So their infrastructure needs and replacements is far less than what ours are for, not a considerably larger customer base.
And then just going back to this chart, I think the way that's kind of blending in and getting to that 7% increase.
Sorry, which chart?
It's page 17. It's the one that shows just our increase over that period of time for both. I mean, while you're not thrilled about that, it is for the amount of investment that we're making. It certainly seems tolerable. You've also got to think about that in terms of, I think, as we operate this system, we've got to think about it in terms of it's on the kind of outer bounds of tolerable. So we don't really have room for more, $100 million projects because we're doing those on the front end of this. We've just got to keep an eye towards that on the back end of this because I think we can all agree there are projects that aren't on this list that we're going to pay for in the next 6 or 7 years. But as we do those, we can't do those. This is kind of a one-time adjustment, I feel like. And, for the sake of future boards, I think we want to make sure we keep an eye towards that from a planning standpoint, that we're not, we're not going to do a couple $100 million projects over the next 5 years, and then in the next 5-year cycle, do a few more $100 million projects. The funds just aren't going to be there.
Agreed. So. And I'd like to, right now, I think a lot of these projects are all reactionary projects because, a lot of this infrastructure has been in for 50 years and was never addressed. Our plan is to address these and then be proactive in how we maintain and look for replacements. So we're not replacing large processes all at once. We can stay up with the installations and new processes that we are putting in. So,
I just maybe hesitate a little bit, but not too much. I want to point out we have a $40 million expense of Route 18 that would probably not have happened, probably less, I would assume, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, if the county had not made the decision to extend the lines, water and sewer down in Sharon.
That is correct, but we've also would have had to construct a new water tower.
Agreed.
But yeah, I mean, that was,
But I'm talking about the sewer end.
Correct, the
On the
sewer-
sewer end, we would have never had to do that Route 18, the $40 million expenditure, if we had not made those other decisions.
The whole
If
point-
the board had not made that decision.
correct, we had to bring the sewer back in order to be compliant with our ODNR
Right.
permit for
Yeah.
bringing
But the
water down
decision,
to Sharon.
but the decisions were made regarding Sharon Township.
Mhm.
And that was, and I'm not sure that cost of Route 18 was taken into consideration when those decisions were made regarding facility planning areas dispute with the city of Wadsworth. And that's $40 million a
Yeah,
lot.
yeah. Well, right. All those things in retrospect, you look at, they're not really opportunities for savings once they're in the system because we're
Well,
a public utility. So,
Yeah, yeah.
No, I hear you.
Your presentation is excellent.
Very
It's
good.
just like
Thank you.
The numbers wound sometimes, and that's not, no reflection of you.
Big numbers.
But the numbers can wound, and I just don't want you to think that sometimes my guess means you have not done your job.
No, I appreciate the honesty and the questions. Keeps me on my toes.
Yeah.
It's fun being the messenger, right?
No.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. If there's any other questions, Jeremy, feel free to funnel them through Jeremy or reach out to me.
Great.
And
All
I'll
right.
follow up
Appreciate
on
it.
those two items.
Thank you.
The existing debt, and then I'll look at some other regional providers as well.
Super. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Scott. All right. Is everyone good? Do you need a quick bathroom break or
No,
anything
I'm good.
before we go? Keep going?
I'd rather keep
I'm
going.
All righty. Next, we have, I'd like to discuss our previous conversations that I think it was towards the end of December. We were discussing the options for the Chippewa wastewater treatment plant. And since then, we had contracted with Hazen and Sawyer to review the viability of either taking the flows from Chippewa's wastewater plant and pumping them to Westfield's plant, in which the county would, at that point, have to secure the Westfield wastewater plant. Or the other option was taking the Westfield wastewater plant to regionalize and pump it north to the Chippewa plant. And we did an evaluation of that, and you were, all three of you were provided the final memorandum for that. I didn't know if Hazen would turn that over to them to kind of go through this report and answer any questions you may have.
Very good.
All right. And Corinne Sackett with Hazen Sawyer will be doing the presentation.
Yeah, and I'll just say two things. It's kind of three individual.
Oh, make sure you get him the mic. Get him the mic.
It's kind of what we put together were three different things. The comparison of looking at Westfield Center to Chippewa and then vice versa. And then also the third-party review of the GMP by Great Lakes. And then we also did an internal review of the self-performed items for Great Lakes, just to kind of compare costs, make sure the numbers you received from Great Lakes were in line, et cetera. So we can cover all that if you'd like.
Sure, that'd be great, thanks.
So first I'll just talk about the Westfield evaluation. So for this evaluation, we looked at, as Jeremy mentioned, two alternatives, and there were two sub-alternatives. But alternative one is conveying all flows from Chippewa Lake collection system to the Westfield Center wastewater treatment plant. The sub-alternatives with that, either basically you pump the flows into the closest gravity sewer in Westfield Center, or you pump the flows all the way from the Chippewa Lake plant to the Westfield Center plant. So we looked at both of those alternatives as far as conveying the flow to Westfield. And then for alternative two, we looked at pumping the flows in the opposite direction, so from the Westfield Center wastewater treatment plant to the Chippewa Lake wastewater treatment plant. There was no sub-alternatives there because there's really no nearby gravity sewers that you could tap into, so you basically had to pump the flows all the way from Westfield Center to Chippewa Lake. The figure on the left is just showing what the expanded Chippewa Lake treatment plant would look like in this alternative. I didn't show one for Westfield, but basically we're already talking about a new plant at Chippewa Lake, so for this alternative, it's a larger plant. You're adding additional tankage for treating a higher average flow rate. Right now, the Chippewa Lake design that we've completed so far is for a 1 MGD plant. If you were to add in the Westfield Center flows, it'd be a 1.6 MGD plant. So we captured all of that in our cost estimate.
Including the new customers for the one alternative.
We did look at the new customers. We looked at it on a life cycle basis for that, and I think for both alternatives, because the pricing is pretty similar, you'll see, it was a really long payback period, almost like nearing 200 years.
200, okay. But how many customers are we talking about?
They'll still be
500, so, okay.
So those
It's just the difference in cost between Chippewa and then these alternatives,
Got
not
it.
looking at the total cost,
Right,
but how
exactly.
long it
Basically,
would
if you're
take.
going
Right,
to
you're
one of
talking about
these.
the capital costs.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
those
not the-
500 customers require an additional 50% increase on the capacity of the plant?
Based on the current design average of Westfield, unless you were going to derate that plant, but Westfield has a current design average of 0.64 MGD.
Explain to me what you mean by that.
They are permitted with the EPA to treat an average of 0.64 MGD, so we assume that you wouldn't want to decrease that capacity at all.
For 500 customers, we wouldn't want to decrease that capacity?
Their average flow they see is about 0.5.
Okay. And what's our existing customers on the Chippewa plant?
I think it was around 3 population-wise. I think we're in the 3,000, 3,400.
So we have 6
amazing to
times
me.
the
I know,
customers
it's
and
amazing.
only double the operation? I mean, twice as much the flow?
Roughly, yep.
That seems,
It's selection system, I&I. You're just thinking direct usage.
Right.
But there's infiltration that gets into the pipes that can cause
Peak flows.
rain events. Yeah,
events.
that's
Mhm.
like those.
It does
average
seem, the
flows.
numbers do seem an anomaly, though, for 6,000 versus 500.
3,000 versus 500, but yeah.
3,000.
But yes.
500 customers.
So how many customers do we have in the Chippewa system right now?
Remember, I think it was
I think around 3,000,
3,000
somewhere in that
customers.
neighborhood.
So we've got 6 times the customers and only twice the flow rate. Or the need for twice the flow rate, because we don't have that one MGD now, we're
Right.
at
You're at
7
0.8.
0.8, okay. That alone is incredible to me.
Yes.
Yeah, those flows were given to us by the Westfield wastewater
Right.
plant superintendent.
And would there be any, I know there wasn't in the analysis, but would any of those, let's assume there's other circumstances there, would any of those things be improved by the lines that would have to be run in that?
Because that'd be all collection system.
Yeah, so it's already in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're using the same gravity sewer lines in this event, like we would assume those would still be in place, so your peak flows probably wouldn't change either
Yeah.
direction.
That is a staggering volume. Okay.
Okay.
So this table shows the summary of the costs for these alternatives. We also compared it to the current Chippewa Lake wastewater treatment plant design. So that current design is about $90 million, as we've discussed from the GMP from Great Lakes. And then alternative 1A is about 167, 1B 170, and alternative 2 is about 159 million. So there was a significant increase in the cost for doing any of these alternatives evaluated in this memo.
And in the context of this, I have my legal background, so conveyance cost to me means acquiring property, but in this, conveyance cost means the actual pipes that are going to be
That is the
required.
pipes and the pump stations, yes.
Because for a second I was like, why would we be paying a different amount for that? And I realized I didn't know what conveyance cost meant.
There were costs included for purchase of the property at Westfield that would be necessary. Obviously, you would have to purchase the existing property, and there's not enough room there for the expanded plant, so you would have to buy the property north of the existing Westfield plant. too.
Wasn't there an issue also with EPA in terms of upgrading that? And
Capacity,
your
being able to
basically,
discharge the
your discharge is
volume.
going to have to go south.
Well,
or someplace else. Some other
Just-
creek?
Well, there's not really any other creek to go to that's
Okay.
feasible that would be cheaper than these costs.
Got it.
It's going into, I think Camel Creek is the name of it. And
Okay.
right now, the flow from the treatment plant is larger than the flow in the creek. So even going further means
Oh.
your concentrations are reduced, which
right.
means more treatment, higher costs for treatment, et cetera.
Oh,
Not
okay.
that it's impossible, but it increases the
But-
cost.
So that doesn't, then that's an operating cost, correct?
Yeah, and, you know, a capital cost in the
Capital
beginning
cost, but
for-
also an operating
right,
cost
at
too. If
both.
you're gonna treat
Yes.
more, it's gonna cost you more.
Right.
But the
Yeah,
one,
okay, yeah.
the 1.7 that's in there would include the acquisition plus the expansion, or just the acquisition?
No, that's just the parcel of property. The actual treatment facility cost is the 107 million at the top.
No, I get. I think I
No,
get that.
he means
It was the
purchase
property.
Of
the
what's already
Westfield,
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the 1.7 what you're saying?
I think it was both parcels.
Okay.
Yeah, both parcels were included.
Current
footprint
Westfield
to
plan.
expand on plus what's there already.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I think that jumps off the page to me as probably being too high. It doesn't move the needle a whole lot, but because the parcel of land that's adjacent to it is how big? That we were
It's
thinking
north of it. I think both parcels, if you, in the report, I think were about 1.5 million total, if
Yeah.
I recall.
I think we used the.
We used the auditors.
Okay.
Value for those to come up to that value.
Yep. Okay.
Got it. Okay.
Or their audited value or.
Yeah.
Right.
appraisal value.
Okay.
And those are both listed in the report, the costs that were from the auditor's site.
So, I mean, our recommendation out of this report was to continue with the current Chippewa Lake design and expansion at the planned 1 MGD flow rate, and to not add any flows from Westfield Center nor to pump to Westfield Center due to the high cost of those alternatives. Any other questions about that?
So just to be clear, it was how many additional customers in Westfield?
500.
500
And at our current.
with a
sewer-
200-year payback.
No, so so it's 500, and we multiply that by our current sewer rate.
Right.
Okay. It was about $270,000 of revenue
Uh-huh.
per year. So to go the difference between these, if you look at your total project cost there, let's just say 80 million.
Mhm.
You're over 200 years of return.
But it would be,
on that revenue.
considering we're about to go up a ton on the cost of sewer, the 200 years would go down significantly.
I'll give you 100 years.
Yeah, well, that's significant. That's
Well, I'm
significant.
not sure I understand the point.
The
Okay.
point is that our rates are about to.
They're not
go
gonna
up
be Well,
they are, but
significantly. They're
yeah.
not gonna be the today's rates.
Right.
So
But this
that
would even-
saying 200 years is very
Yeah, but
unrealistic.
if but if you're talking about financing 90,000 versus 167,000 or
But he
171,000.
factored that in. He factored that in when he's saying the 200 years, but he didn't
Right,
factor in the
but-
increase in
right.
what we're actually gonna pay for sewer.
Correct. We just used today's rates.
Right, yeah, you do
So-
today's rates, right.
But
Okay.
just, I mean, I do think
Yeah.
the numbers speak for themselves.
Yes?
However,
Yeah.
what you're capitalizing in that 200-year analysis is the spend of $158 million divided by 500 new customers. What we should actually be evaluating is the increased spend, because you're going to tell us that
We
we
did
need
look
to
at the
spend.
difference.
That's how we
Okay.
looked at it.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
so it's the difference between, let's say, the cheapest option, alternative 2, and the 89 that you're going to tell us we need to spend
Correct.
anyway.
Right.
Okay.
Because that brings in those 500 people, and what amount did that?
That makes me more comfortable, because I just didn't want to say, well, it's not a $158 million project because of those 500 customers, because we're
Yeah,
looking at
it's
a $90
another-
million
yeah,
project anyway.
It's another
Okay.
80 plus.
Yep.
Mhm. Okay, got it.
I'm good with that one.
And so, as Scott mentioned, we just wanted to talk about what we've done as far as the Chippewa Lake design greatest maximum price evaluation. So initially, we all received that greatest maximum price from Great Lakes Construction of $82.9 million for the new Chippewa Lake wastewater treatment plant. Hazen contracted with a third party, Hunter Pacific, who does a lot of this cost estimating work, and they completed an independent cost estimate of the same design documents that Great Lakes received. They came up with a very similar cost of about $83.8 million for the project. We also did an internal review of the self-performed work that Great Lakes is would be completing. We did have some minor comments that we plan to go back to Great Lakes with, where we think they might have been overestimating some crane sizes, things like that. We're thinking it's about maybe a savings of $200,000 to $500,000 if they take our comments into account. We haven't had those discussions yet. We wanted to talk to you all first. And then also, we Great Lakes and the Hazen team did a value engineering review of the design. Great Lakes presented us a multitude of different options for reducing the capital cost, and we found about $2 million in possible savings on the project so far. There are a few that are still in discussion that could result in some more savings.
And how long will it take to finalize those numbers?
To finalize the savings numbers? I'd say relatively soon. There's just really a few conversations we're still having with the county. I mean, it would definitely be before, the final GMP, like that would all be incorporated into those, but I would say within a month or so, we probably would have a final number on that.
So with the GMP, what's the due date? We have to make a decision before it no longer is valid.
Well, I spoke with Great Lakes to find out how long their subs would hold the cost.
Right.
Their initial GMP that they submitted was in November,
Mhm.
and we're roughly 3 months.
Right, I know we are, yeah.
So, the way it was explained is that none of them have come back with more, but he hasn't asked either. From the subs to
Sure.
with increased pricing, and he didn't want to keep going back to them.
Oh, yeah, right,
So,
right.
So yeah, if we could get some direction sooner than later, that might assist in minimizing any potential cost increase from the subs.
Mhm.
And then also I'd like to touch on the Hunter
He
Pacific.
should have a mic. You need a mic.
Sorry.
And just to touch on the Hunter Pacific piece, it's my understanding that when they were given all of the documents for the project, Hunter Pacific did not know the actual total amount from Great Lakes' bid. So the number that they came up with, their total came up before they knew the actual total of what.
They weren't targeting an outcome.
Exactly. And they
But
did.
that's what you would want, yes.
Correct. I just wanted to make sure that was clear, and they did come in at about, Great Lakes actually came in about 900,000 below what they would anticipate to see, and that's prior to any of those value engineering items that we've.
What I would appreciate is if you could maybe get yourself on the agenda, like sooner rather than later, with Westfield Village and show them this, 15-minute presentation that you guys just presented. I think it's, it would be a very neighborly thing to do to, that they have had questions, and they have contacted us, with their questions about this whole project. So I would really like you on their agenda, and show them what you just presented to us.
Yeah, would I work through Rick Rod with that?
Yeah, the Rick Robs.
Don't you think that would
Council
be
President.
good?
Yeah,
Rob,
they
thank you.
actually have a meeting next Tuesday.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll see, I can even send them over I'll send them over the technical memorandum ahead of time, just so that they have something.
That'd be great.
But this presentation didn't take long, so to be fair to our community partners, I think it would be great if you went to that meeting and shared this with them also.
That's fair.
On the analysis that you did here, I know this was, I think it was beyond the scope, but there wasn't any analysis of how the CMAR process impacted the overall numbers. You just did kind of an apples to apples with Hunter Pacific.
Yeah,
If
so
you were
they-
going to do your own CMAR bid, this is what it would look
Right.
like.
Yes.
Because there was you might have mentioned, now we got microphone in the wrong place, but you might have mentioned at the last meeting when Great Lakes was here, that there might be some savings if we hadn't gone the CMAR route. Was that your observation?
I mean, there's always that possibility, right? And you end up maybe being a little lower in the upfront number, but then when you get to the end of the project through change orders, et cetera, you're probably at that same or higher value. The benefit with the CMAR is that you guys are engaged and they're engaged with the engineer through the process. And the hope is that you don't end up with change orders, that you have, allowances for things that are unknown in the project, but you don't have the large change orders that you'd see in a lot of the other projects. So that's the benefit from the CMAR. I think the upfront numbers tend to be a little larger, but at the end of the day, it is actually a cheaper way to go.
So are you
on larger projects?
So, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that was your observation when we had the meeting where Great Lakes was here?
Yes.
Okay. Are you more comfortable with the CMAR approach now than you were at that meeting and Great Lakes' participation in it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm 100%. I do like the CMAR process, but having this evaluation done to do a truth check of their numbers, and, you know, we've dug pretty deep into this, and then this is, Hunter Pacific probably does 30 to 50 of these types of evaluations a year with other contractors. So we feel pretty confident. In fact, you know, you got a lower number than them with Great Lakes, and there's a potential to probably knock, you know, we know at least 2 million off of that number that is Great Lakes is out there right now.
That's a good question. When will we have a more solidified guaranteed minimum price when you're looking at the 2 million figure and the
So
3 to 500,000 figure?
yeah, there's a couple things that needs to go on, because for Great Lakes to finalize their GMP, we never got to that next phase of having all of the conference calls and meetings and interviews with all their subs. That being Hazen and the county, to where there'll be meetings, and it'll happen quickly, probably over a month's period, where you have a meeting with their subs, and they might have a couple different subs on a specific area, and go through their scope, their cost, and then they refine those numbers and give Great Lakes their final number. And then it's up to the county, okay, I want subcontractor A or B, or do you just go with the low? So that takes a little bit of time to work through that, but I'm guessing that we could have their GMP, and I don't want to answer for Great Lakes because they're not here, but I would think in a month or so. They're very engaged in this right now.
Yeah.
They've
Well,
been pretty, you know, digging through their numbers.
And to be fair, we've been the cause for kind of hitting the pause button because these numbers were so far out of the realm of what we were expecting. So
Yeah.
I don't want to hold their feet to the fire after we've kind of been the ones that let us do a little bit more due
But to
diligence.
be fair to us, when something doubles like that, that's what we're supposed to do.
I'm glad we did it.
That's
Yeah.
what we're
It's not a-
supposed to do.
But I just mean we don't
100%.
need them to be rushing now because we've taken a
And you
breath.
bring up a good point, and Jeremy said, you know, it was good to call him, because, you know, you bid projects nowadays, subs don't want to hold numbers for more than 30 days. A lot of times in the bid document, we have 90 days. We're already past that. And the hope is, I think Great Lakes sees a bird in hand, and hopefully they're going to continue
When
with
you
that
go
cost.
with the guaranteed minimum price rate, that's what you
Maximum,
hope for.
right.
We're guaranteeing, excuse me,
Yeah.
maximum price rate.
That is an important
Yeah,
distinction.
yeah, and you know,
Not guaranteed minimum.
You know, it's Colleen who would want
I
the
know.
guaranteed minimum. But
What? Minimum? No.
as low as it can go.
Why, no, but that's,
It was a joke.
Okay.
Anyway, but that is what you hope for, the absolute best price, so that you don't go out to bid.
Correct.
You're hoping for that route to be a really good price.
so the question is do we have a time frame when we, as a board, we have to make a decision, go or no go? We've already looked at the alternatives that are, I think, not going to work. So we're going to, at this point, when are we going to make the decision about moving forward on the Chippewa plant?
Well, I want
Next
to
week or
see.
two, once we
Well,
get their numbers?
Yeah, I mean,
Is
I
that the
think you
process?
guys already have a contract with them just for the pre-construction services,
Correct,
which
yeah.
is still getting to that GMP.
Mhm.
I think the only, and Jeremy, if you don't mind, I think the only outstanding item is the issue with the trees that need to be falling out there, because you have until the end of March before bat season.
Mhm.
And those, if that isn't done by then those can't be taken down until the fall. So I think that.
Subcontractors versus bats, okay.
Yeah, so I think there's opportunities for the county. Do you just go out and hire somebody separately to drop those? That would obviously reduce Great Lakes' cost, because that cost is in their project currently. Or is that something that could be negotiated with Great Lakes up front, saying, hey, let's go out and get these trees down, you know, get that part of the contract going. Maybe it's an amendment to the GMP or something. I'm just, you know, I want to bring that up. That to me is the biggest issue right now, is if not, I guarantee you they're not going to hold their prices till the fall.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I think the variable is when we get zeroed in on the numbers, then we've got
They
something to
had
act
like
on.
95,000 in their contract for this.
Okay.
And that's not just dropping them, that's dropping them, cleaning them, clearing them, getting them off the site. So just give you a general idea of how much you'd be looking at to get that done up front.
First, I'd probably like to consult Raftilis on any expenditures outside of the project. We can actually have, we have a local contractor that's actually did the trees over at Westfield. It would just be working with, and that Chagrin Valley, to just mark the property lines.
Yeah.
As long as we get the trees dropped, they don't have to be hauled away,
Right.
as long as they're dropped. But if at least I had authorization to do that, we can still progress with this, but at least that, we won't be held up until
The fall.
Thanksgiving,
Sure.
essentially, to start any type of construction.
I'm okay with that.
Me too.
Yeah, I think I am too. And then lastly, I know you've got a slide about the cost and the timeline and all that stuff. I'm sensitive to how these things tend to be moving targets when we go from start to finish. I think internally, and I say internally because I know Hazen, you're involved in a lot of our projects already anyway, so I think that would extend to you when I say that. I want to be at a point where we've got less variables about, how these things can expand before we do the first phase thing. So I say that this is an easy Monday morning quarterbacking exercise to say that about, but just because it fits within the accuracy range and those kinds of things, if we anticipate there are going to be other needs or an expanding scope of the project, that's probably not the right time to have the initial discussion about it, because some of that is going to inform. I think, we're moving ahead with it, and then we get some sticker shock. Well, we haven't committed to moving ahead, but we were already on the path and invested in the path of moving ahead, and so I just want to make sure that as we do these things in the future, although I did hear Jeremy guarantee there are no more $100 million projects.
Yes, I heard that. It's on the record. on
Maybe
film.
that's the better upshot. But no, as we do these things in the future, I want to make sure we are much more conservative in terms of we're moving forward when we've got a certain confidence that the scope of the project is what it needs to be, and just a best practice. I think that's how I look at that. So.
Yeah, and maybe a perfect example of this is maybe the solids handling building that I think in our initial 30%, we were anticipating a 900 square foot building. But with operations, and maybe Dave can touch on this a little bit, but when you come to the solids handling, some of that process was occurring outside the building. And just operationally, we've run into a lot of
with weather.
Freezing equipment. It's where you can't do it outside, so now it has to get enclosed.
I happened to be there on a day where you would realize why it shouldn't be done outside when it's sub-zero.
And I will say I could not have asked, or I shouldn't have asked, but like
perfect day
for something to go wrong while you were there was
Just
perfect
so
timing.
you know, Jeremy, it went from 900 square feet to 5,818 square feet covered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, significant increase.
Correct. And then I know that and I think you had it in your slide about the foundations was a huge factor of this as well.
Right, the geotech, we didn't have geotech results at the time of the PER estimate, so we didn't know the subsurface conditions, and due to the poor soils, the piles are a large cost of this project.
Yeah.
So, when we talked about comparable operations here a minute ago. When Northeast Ohio facilities are building these, they're doing that all under roof now? Is that the
On the solids handling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you guys are
Jeremy.
processing it and then
Jeremy,
hauling it.
give him the mic.
Sorry.
You two need to sit next to each other.
Especially in your guys' situation where you're processing it and then hauling it to another facility. I mean, you don't want to process that material and then let it sit out, get wet again.
Right.
Yeah, you've just wasted all your money dewatering it.
Yep.
So yes, a facility such as that, 100%.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, regional sewer districts, solids buildings that I've been in have all been fully enclosed.
Yeah. It does make sense. It just also is, a significant.
It adds cost, yep.
Yep. Okay.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Excellent. Good
you so much.
presentation.
And you're gonna call the village and get on their schedule.
I will reach out to Rick, set something up for you said next Tuesday.
They meet next Tuesday, meet monthly, so next Tuesday would be a good
And
one to go
bringing
to.
them this too in your slide presentation, I think that would be great.
Yep, I'll get them all that information, so.
Great.
All right, very good.
Okay, well, thanks for your time.
Anybody have anything else?
At some point, Matt's not here, I'm looking for Matt. Will we be talking about the water plant? When's that next on our list to talk about?
I'm still waiting to get feedback from the contractor on the decorative brick.
Okay.
For the building.
Yeah, and I
Decorative or is it
no? I talked to the like they're okay, and I know you were like percentage of cost of the project. 250 million is still 250 million for brick to me. It doesn't matter what the,
250,000.
excuse me, 250,000. Like, we're in the millions here. It doesn't matter what the percentage of the cost of the project, it's still $250,000. And you were gonna look at options like maybe not doing the back or whatever, like, I did wanna see some options, cause I'm not a yes for $250,000 for the brick all the way around. If it, you know, I think Westfield was okay with not the back, right?
Or with potentially a facade or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I thought they wanted at least two sides or
Well,
something
the
like
facade
that.
is like the front-facing part of the
Yeah.
building,
Right.
so
Yeah.
they
Right.
talked about that, and then they also talked about
the
each side.
Each side.
Because of people driving east and west on Greenwich
But I mean,
Road.
any
are the
savings
two
we
long
can
sides
do,
of the
any
building.
savings we can do on, at that price point for,
Yeah.
those, I just wanted the options.
Yeah, no,
to
that's
see.
fine. Oh,
Sure.
yeah, I think it was 270 or 250,000 for a
To do the
brick
full
building.
thing, right.
I'm waiting to see what the cost is for the decorative brick.
Right.
But I also want to find out what the maintenance life, or what how well those,
How long did
the
the
decorative brick would last.
actually
And,
last?
and the back, you're
Yeah.
gonna also give us a back of just keeping it standard like you always do.
Yeah, I'd almost hate to have just that, it's a very small portion of the building in the back that would,
Yeah,
you know.
that doesn't make sense.
And then the neighbors in the back
Oh,
are
I
wondering
think
why
any
don't we get
savings
to see
makes
the
sense
brick?
when you're talking
Well,
brick.
I don't think you're right. There might be some bats that live in the back. I don't know if there's any other
The Indiana
neighbors
bat,
behind it.
right?
Yeah, yeah. No, but that's good. I just want to make sure, we'll still have further discussion on that forthcoming. So.
Yep, I guess, when I hear back from that, I'll bring
And
that
you
back
have
up to you during.
my brain in millions on, after this meeting, not 250,000. Anybody, anything else?
Okay,
I
move to adjourn.
Second.
Roll?
Hambley?
Yes.
Harrison?
Yes.
Sweattick?
Yes, thank you all very much.
Thank you.